She was 7 years old, standing on a public sidewalk in California, playing a violin for strangers who didn't know her name. No stage, no ticket sales, no guarantee anyone would stop. Just a little girl, a case open at her feet, and music that had to be good enough to make people slow down on their way somewhere else. That girl was Karolina Protsenko, and what most people who know her story have never heard is what those early years on the pavement actually cost, and what they built. Karolina was born in Ukraine in 2007. When her family emigrated to the United States, they landed in the greater Los Angeles area, a long way from home in every sense. She was young, the language was new, and the country was unfamiliar. Her parents enrolled her in violin lessons not long after they arrived. She was around 7 years old. That's not unusual for a child with musical parents. Start early, build the foundation, see where it goes. What was unusual was what came next. Rather than waiting for recitals or formal performances, the family took a different approach. They brought Karolina to the Santa Monica Promenade and the Venice Beach Boardwalk, public spaces, outdoor foot traffic, tourists, locals, people passing through on their lunch break. She played, and her father filmed. There was no strategy in the conventional sense. No label, no management, no booking agent. The plan was simply to play, in public, consistently, with the camera rolling, and to do it again the next week, and the week after that. Most people who walk past a street performer keep walking. What she had to learn, at 7 and 8 years old, was how to make someone stop. That's a different skill from playing well. It's the skill of holding a crowd that doesn't owe you its attention. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. A street performing is harder than it looks, and it's an education that no conservatory teaches. Karolina was building something in those early years that formal training can't replicate: the ability to read a live audience and respond in real time. When you play in a recital hall, the audience sits down, the lights dim, and there's a social contract in place. They're there to listen. On the Santa Monica Promenade, no such contract exists. People are walking to their car, heading to lunch, dealing with their kids. If the music doesn't reach them in the first 10 seconds, they're gone. She played through that repeatedly. Hundreds of times, people walked past without looking. People stopped, took a photo, kept walking. And some people, a few, stopped completely and stayed. What that kind of performing demands from a child is a level of emotional resilience that's rarely discussed when people talk about her rise. The viral videos make it look effortless. The years before the viral videos were anything but. Her parents were present through all of it. Her father operated the camera. The decision to document consistently, from the earliest performances forward, would later prove to be the foundation of the entire YouTube archive. But in those early years, it was just a family filming a little girl who loved to play. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got, until now. The Santa Monica Promenade produced a lot of footage between 2016 and 2018. Most of it accumulated modest view counts, the kind of slow, organic growth that doesn't feel like anything is happening until you look back at it later. Then came the Despacito cover. The Luis Fonsi song was everywhere in 2017. Radio, streaming, every playlist imaginable. Karolina's violin version, filmed on the promenade with her usual setup, caught the algorithm in a way the earlier videos hadn't. It spread across Facebook shares, YouTube recommendations, and international news feeds. The view count climbed into the tens of millions. Comments flooded in from dozens of countries. The video didn't just go viral in the United States. It resonated across Europe, Latin America, and Asia. People tagged friends. Parents shared it with their children. The clip circulated on platforms that didn't even have an English-speaking majority. For Karolina, who was around 10 years old at the time, the scale of the response was sudden. One week, she was a girl playing on the promenade for tips. The next, her face was recognizable to people on the other side of the world. But here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. The Despacito video made her famous. What the viral moment obscured was how much work came before it. By the time that video spread globally, Karolina had already spent roughly 2 to 3 years performing publicly and consistently. She had logged hundreds of hours on the promenade. She had played in heat, in wind, through awkward crowds and empty stretches. She had watched strangers ignore her and learned to keep playing anyway. The performance in that viral clip was precise, controlled, and musically confident because it was built on a foundation that most people watching it never saw. The video looked effortless. It looked effortless because of everything that preceded it. This is the part of her story that tends to get compressed in the coverage. The idea that she was simply discovered, that the algorithm found her, that luck placed her in front of a camera at the right moment. But the camera had been running for years. The algorithm eventually noticed something that was already genuinely good. There's also a family dimension here that rarely gets examined. Her parents made a series of deliberate choices: consistent filming, consistent uploading, consistent presence on the promenade. That's not passive parenting. That's a significant investment of time, logistics, and belief. Most people who know this story stop here. But the real story starts right now. After the viral breakthrough, the channel grew quickly. Subscribers came from the initial wave of attention, but retention required something more than a single popular video. What Karolina and her family built in the years that followed was a consistent content operation. New covers went up regularly. The style evolved, same outdoor settings, same direct performance format, but with increasingly ambitious song selections and a developing musical identity. She began collaborating with other musicians. One of the most significant creative partnerships was with Daniele Vitali, an Italian saxophonist who performed alongside her in several high-performing videos. Their Dance Monkey collaboration, which featured a toddler spontaneously joining the performance, accumulated enormous view counts and introduced Karolina to audiences who hadn't found her through the original Despacito wave. The collaborations did something important. They kept the channel from being a one-artist story. They introduced the element of surprise and unpredictability that street performance naturally provides. The idea that anything could happen, that the next video might capture something unrepeatable. Her channel subscriber count grew into the millions across multiple properties. Separate channels were eventually built for different content formats, including one dedicated specifically to her voice work. And that's when the decision was made, the one nobody around her saw coming. Violin had defined Karolina publicly. That was her identity on YouTube, the thing that drove every collaboration request and every new subscriber. Walking away from that, even partially, carried real risk. She launched a dedicated vocal channel. Singing, not just playing, a completely different skill set, a different audience expectation, and a format that removed the visual hook of the instrument entirely. The move signaled something about how she viewed her own creative identity. She wasn't building a brand around a single instrument. She was building a platform for herself as a musician in the broader sense. Someone who could develop across formats and not be locked into the version of herself that went viral at 10. The vocal content was met with genuine curiosity from existing followers and drew new audiences who discovered her through the singing work rather than the violin. It expanded the channel network without abandoning what built it. She also continued the street performance format through her mid-teens, performing internationally, not just in California. The Santa Monica Promenade remained part of the story, but it was no longer the whole story. She never talked about this publicly, until now. As of 2025, Karolina Protsenko is in her late teens, running multiple active YouTube channels with subscriber counts in the multi-millions combined. She continues to release violin covers and street performance content alongside vocal material. Her recent videos include international collaborations, classical pieces performed alongside other musicians, and the kind of spontaneous street interaction content that first defined her. Strangers being invited to join, unexpected reactions, unrehearsed moments caught on camera. The formula hasn't changed dramatically. The format that worked on the Santa Monica Promenade when she was 8 still works at 17. Genuine performance, filmed with attention, released consistently. The audience size changed. The underlying approach did not. What's notable is that she's managing this during the years when most teenagers are navigating school, social lives, and identity questions. Her identity, in a sense, was shaped early and publicly. Millions of people have watched her grow up. That kind of visibility carries its own weight, and she's carried it through each stage without a visible public breakdown or dramatic departure. At this point in the story, most people walked away. What she did instead is the part nobody talks about. She simply kept showing up. The story of Karolina Protsenko isn't a story about going viral. It's a story about what comes before that. Years of consistent, unglamorous work done in public, with no guarantee of return, by a child who was still learning the language of her new country while already fluent in the language of music. She's still performing, still releasing, still building. The trajectory from a sidewalk in Santa Monica to millions of global subscribers was never a straight line. It was years of small, repeated decisions made by a family who believed that consistency beats luck every time. The question is this: do you think Karolina's story would have gone the same way if her parents hadn't made the decision to film and upload from the very beginning? Or was the talent always going to find a way through?